Yes, it's another big welcome to you on today's edition of the Constitution, where we talk about issues that has to do with the socio-economic and political growth and development of the Nigerian state. And that is what we'll talk more about on the Constitution. Today, like every other day, that's what we'll be looking at on the program. But we'll take another quick break and we'll be back thereafter to look at what we'll be looking at. And of course, you'll meet my guest and we'll begin to discuss, and let's see how this will further enrich the growth and development of our Nigerian state for the betterment of everybody. Like Mrs. Tejuade Babintina Shai will always say, it's for the good of all, and this is just what we are working towards, and God helping us, we hope to achieve that. We'll be back in a minute. All over the world, in the Committee of Nations, it is universally upheld that the pride of a nation essentially lies on the conceptualized, established foundation based and built on the vision and the ideology of the founding fathers of nations. For the founding fathers of Nigeria, a look at what they represent and symbolically symbolized for Nigeria in the unity of our diversity was the vision of a nation where our unity, strength, faith, peace and progress, as reflected in our coat of arms as a nation, is to promote our dignity as a people, despite our uniqueness and our diversity, and one which every Nigerian will be proud of in the advancement and promotion of our socio-cultural heritage, tradition, values, virtues, and beliefs as a people. Hence our saying in the citation of our national anthem, that the labor of our heroes past shall not be in vain. However, how realistic is that to say today? Where lies today the established foundation, vision, and the ideological legacy of our founding fathers? Has their labor now gone in vain? With what we experiencing as a people today in Nigeria, the sufferings in the midst of plenty, the massive soldiers of youth unemployment, the poverty that abounds everywhere in the lives of Nigerians, the failing of workable and functional values and institutions in Nigeria today. Are we where we are supposed to be today as a nation? Can we sincerely pride ourselves truly as the giant of Africa? These are candid foods for thought. When we do a critical analysis and evaluation of today's present realities in Nigeria, in a comparative analogy with what obtains in other climes, maybe this story will make a sense of what we are saying.
Since this is the last speech that I will give as president, I think it's fitting to leave one final thought, an observation about a country which I love. It was stated best in a letter I received not long ago. A man wrote me and said, "You can go to live in France, but you cannot become a Frenchman. You can go to live in Germany or Turkey or Japan, but you cannot become a German, a Turk, or Japanese. But anyone from any corner of the earth can come to live in America and become an American." Yes, the torch of Lady Liberty symbolizes our freedom and represents our heritage, the compact with our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors. It is that lady who gives us our great and special place in the world. For it's the great life force of each generation of new Americans that guarantees that America's triumph shall continue unsurpassed into the next century and beyond. Other countries may seek to compete with us, but in one vital area, as a beacon of freedom and opportunity that draws the people of the world, no country on earth comes close. This, I believe, is one of the most important sources of America's greatness. We lead the world because, unique among nations, we draw our people, our strength, from every country and every corner of the world. And by doing so, we continuously renew and enrich our nation. While other countries cling to the stale past, here in America we breathe life into dreams, we create the future, and the world follows us into tomorrow. Thanks to each wave of new arrivals to this land of opportunity, we're a nation forever young, forever bursting with energy and new ideas, and always on the cutting edge, always leading the world to the next frontier. This quality is vital to our future as a nation. If we ever closed the door to new Americans, our leadership in the world would soon be lost. Those who become American citizens love this country even more. And that's why the Statue of Liberty lifts her lamp to welcome them to the Golden Door. It is bold men and women yearning for freedom and opportunity who leave their homelands and come to a new country to start their lives over. They believe in the American dream, and over they make it come true for themselves, for their children, and for others. They give more than they receive, they labor and succeed, and often they are entrepreneurs. But their greatest contribution is more than economic, because they understand in a special way how glorious it is to be an American. They renew our pride and gratitude in the United States of America, the greatest, freest nation in the world, the last best hope of man on earth.
Can we pride ourselves as a nation of a people, like what the late President Ronald Reagan of America said in that historic speech of his nation called America? Only time, and time indeed, will tell. Yes, welcome back, and thank you again for staying tuned. Wherever you are watching us, we're on DSTV channel 256, Star Times channel 118, Go TV channel 90, and on Concert channel 950. You can also read through our social media platforms, where you can also connect with us to be part of what we do. And let's hear your views, your comments. Just watch the screen and you see the scroll message of our different social media platforms, where you connect with us to tell us your own views as to what it is and what it should be in terms of a feedback, for us to be on the same page together to help Nigeria attain the greater heights it must so attain. Today we're going to look at constitutional provisions. We're also going to look at government policies. We're also going to look at government programs, how all of this connects with employment generation and entrepreneurship, particularly how we can access that assessment to our natural resources. These are some of the things we'll be looking at with my guest today. And seated close to me, you always know them because it's a collective effort and is a team spirit, a teamwork that we're doing on the Constitution. So when you see them, most of the time, don't be worried, because they are just the movers and shakers of what we do on the Constitution as a program. Seated close to me is a veteran journalist. You know him too well. He's equally a columnist on the Punch newspaper, Mr. Lekon Shote. It's also good to have you today. Join me on this discuss.
Thank you very much, Femi. It's nice to be here. And let me wish our viewers Happy
New Year. It's always a good thing having you around us.
Thank you
well, much. You know her now. I'm sure you'll be frequent with what she does. A lot of you have been asking, Tani Mama Yego. Forgive my use of that word, but that's what some of the... Who is that woman particularly? Why is she so passionate about the Nigerian cause? Well, I wouldn't know, but that's what she is and that's who she is. Please join me again to say a big welcome on this discourse here today with Mrs. Morenike Tejuade Babentin Ashai. It's also good, always a good pleasure having you around.
Thank you so much. I'm so passionate because I know we can leave Nigeria a better place than we found it. Okay. And it is important for us to ensure that the future of this country is in our hands. Our destiny should be in our hands, not in the hands of foreigners. And we have the ability. We have everything.
What it takes
for us,
in
Nigerians,
the midst of plenty,
to make Nigeria a great place,
a great country,
and a better place. And by God's grace, it will happen.
I believe that, because
lifetime.
I keep telling people in my time, not in my own children's time, this time Nigeria will be great and better. Sincerely, I believe that with all sense of conviction. And of course, the man who will be looking at that technical aspect of the economic perspective to all of this discourse is also a very respected Nigerian, a man of integrity with that sense of credibility for what and who he is. Please also join me to say a big welcome to Mr. Ikemefuna Mbago. It's a great honor too, sir, to have you again on the program. This should be your second time out with us, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you very much. We're very happy to be here. Happy New Year, everybody. And we look forward to discussing economic development and employment generation, because they're key to anything that we're doing. Any government that ignores economic development or employment generation doesn't really have anything to do.
Precisely. Thank you so very much for the honor done us to have you here today. Well, I will start this discourse, viewers at home, with my guest here, seated close to me, Mr. Lekon Shote. who will be taking us through the understanding of economic development, as it were, looking at this aspect of economic employment generation and entrepreneurship. If we must look at that very sincerely, we look at how well the economic development of any state are said, which must be defined by what we do in terms of the wealth generation and standard of living. Mr. Lekon Shote is a renowned journalist and a very current, passionate one. So how would you explain this? What would be your take when we look at all of this equation?
Okay, let me start via an unusual approach.
An unusual approach.
The word economics comes from two Greek words, oikos, nomos. Oikos means home or house, and then nomos means norms or law or rules, which translates to politics. What I'm trying to say is that there is no way any nation will achieve anything if those who play the politics don't do what they are supposed to do. And if those who run the state actors don't quite understand economics, they will not get you out of the woods. Yes, you know. And again, to further push this forward, economics, the classical definition of economics says it is the rational allocation of scarce resources. Who does that, if not the state actors? And if you look at Nigeria's Constitution, Chapter 2, especially Section 16, says the government must harness the resources of the country for the in the interest of the people. It also, insists. Comes up. Section 2, Section 16(2) of the Constitution also says that government must come up with plans to run the economy in the interest of the people. What that means is that government must actually be looking at economic development plans.
A blueprint.
Yes, blueprint.
That will help drive.
Exactly. Otherwise, you will be running in circles and you will never get to where you're going. And some of us have been complaining that, you see, let us look at this. We are making roads, waterways, airports, railway lines, and all that.
Other infrastructure.
That is infrastructure. Do you have an economic plan before you then have infrastructure? Because if you're just making roads that you don't quite need, or you position them in places that you don't really need them.
Or that's
for example,
in places that will not drive economic
exactly.
development.
You have the let's say industrial hub, for example. You have the agricultural hub, for example. Do you have railways or roads that would take products, crops from the farm gates to where they are needed, or where they will be consumed, or where they will be transformed into industrial goods? Do you even have a conversion plan? Or is it just that you will mine economic resources, like oil, petroleum resources, for example, and just ship it out of the country at a cheaper cost, and then you now begin to import it again
at a very high cost?
It's just there's no plan. That is where you have all these trucks and all the tankers along towards the
express roads now that we have,
yes,
major roads
it's because there's no economic plan. Because if there is, somebody would have known that there will be a bunching up of this traffic at this time. So somebody would have decided that we have about 5,000 miles of pipeline, petroleum pipeline. It's not working. Why? It shows there's no economic plan. So where you don't have economic plan, you are not going to move forward. Even if you build all the infrastructure, you don't have proper planning. That means you don't have a strategic approach to what you're doing. Then you are going to have a problem. And I keep saying it, that this government, I'm sorry, No,
but that's the truth.
You see, they claim that they have an economic management team. That is different from an economic advisory team. People who will look at a holistic approach to the entire development process and say, wait a minute, this ought to be done, this ought to be done, this that we are doing, we're not doing it right, maybe we need to review it and come up. But people who are the members of the economic management team, the vice president as chairman, the minister of mines, power,
and the minister of economic planning and budget.
Yes. The Minister of Finance, Minister of Information, Minister of Agric. They are line officers. They are CEOs in their own rights, busy doing their daily grind in their ministries. Then you call them to come and begin to assess the entire
economic blueprint.
They are doing a daily job, which is a tunnel vision. You need people
and which is also demanding already.
Yes, which is demanding on their time and energy and their mind too.
So we should have technocrats separately from all of these, away from who
exactly.
they.
And you need to have this. I've looked at the ARGP.
Yeah, the Economic Growth and Recovery Plan.
It's okay. It's
something that will still is an economic development plan.
It's an effort.
It's an effort, not a plan.
I'm not going to call it economic development. I've looked at it. I don't want to call it economic development plan. You saw Nigeria's first economic development plan, the second one, under the civilian administration and then the Gowon administration. You knew how elaborate and deep it was, and it was strategic. It told you exactly there were timelines, what you are going to achieve in so many months, in so many years. It told us precisely, not a woolly, shall be almost innocuous
body, just a creation or entity.
You just get some consultants to come and put something together. You yourself, you don't even understand it. Therefore, how do you run it when you don't even understand? When somebody else came with a plan and gave it to you, you're not going to have results.
So we should have technocrats.
Indigenization decree.
Decree, that's right.
For example, that is a strategic move. Was it successfully done?
That's another thing.
You and I know, what happened. So there are things that show you that I recall that as a little boy growing up on the Lagos Island, the Indians, the Syrians had shops. But by the time
on Broad Street,
Nnamdi
Azikiwe, Broad Street, the Marina,
Ereko, they were there. Right. But when the Indigenization Decree came, that is a purposive plan, which is a plank of the second economic development plan
of Nigeria.
You understand? Says, okay, you people, foreigners, you move into industry. One, because we expect that you have the resources, the financial resources and technical resources, and you can call back your home governments or resources in your home countries to build these things and invest. And you can see that's why you have the big textile industries in Nigeria. But what happened? Again, there's no sustaining, shall we say, process. So the whole thing collapsed. It used to be that the textile industry was the second largest employer of labor in Nigeria after the federal government.
That's true. But today is a sad story to tell.
It's a story. And I can tell you that my family is involved in 2 textile factories. As of today, I think my family is involved in the biggest lace factory in Nigeria. The machines are there, sitting down, idle, with rats. The other day I went there, I saw reptiles inside the factory with all the machines.
As a result of poor government policies and the program that could have aided the growth and sustenance of that.
Let me expatiate. Some people would take the 6% loan from a Bank of Industry. They will owe money because the resources are not properly planned, economic resources are not planned. Therefore, I know a company that owes about 70 million naira now to Bank of Industry on supposedly cheap loan at 6%. It is not going to work because the resources that you need is not there. The economic plan that will drive the entire process is not on ground.
The oil that will oil it, that will make it.
I think it was Bangida that came up with this idea of rolling plan, which is akin to a budget. A budget is supposed to be a plank within a purposive economic development plan. Let me tell you something. The Soviet Union was the first country that introduced economic development plans. By the time it concluded the 4th economic development plan, by 1950 something, it has superseded American economy. It took GFK to say, wait a minute, these people have
just come
and they
from
had
nowhere.
To have sit down and plan properly. That, it shows you that economic development plans are viable if well
implemented and well harnessed.
I hope I'm not dominating this.
No, you're not. You're not. It's just an expression of we asking you to really look at this thing holistically, which is just what you've done. Will there be any reaction? Is there anything maybe Mr. Ikemefuna will want to say, or Mrs. Ishai will want to say?
What he said really speaks to the issue of planning generally as a core objective of economic development, because any economic development policy must come from planning. I think that what has happened is that we've had so many different approaches that there hasn't been a coordinated strategy which has been continuous, because for a plan to work, it has to be continuous. It has to lead from one thing to the other. You can't start with a plan, for example, to go with import substitution, and halfway you change, to another strategy.
When that has not been
well oiled. So it's important to have a coordinated plan that starts somewhere and has timelines, and people follow through to the end. When you don't follow through, then maybe there's a reason why you have to truncate it. But a situation where you just truncate the plans and change direction, it's akin to being on the road and then you just change lanes without indicating, and then people hit you from behind.
That's right.
So it's a very, very, very important point to make.
Mrs. Ashai, do you have any contrary opinion or something to complement
just to
this point of
complement
direction?
it, for me, economic development, there's no government that can do it all alone without the people. I believe that if we have a strategy, the strategy should not be for government alone. We have a lot of associations that cater for different industries in Nigeria. We have NASIMA, we have MAN, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. We have even SMEs Asborn, Association of Small Business Owners of Nigeria. We have
NASME. You have LASME.
We have NASME.
NASME.
Yes.
The Association of Small Medium Enterprises.
So
where a government is planning for economic growth or development, these people should be the one to actually direct and implement. They should be, because they have to be brought in. They have the resources, they have the know-how,
they have the technocrats, the technicalities,
and they are investing.
They are the ones that will actualize the thing.
They are investing in the economy. Right. So if a government sits down somewhere and you are planning by yourself without bringing in these people, how it's like a government saying we want to develop this, and we are putting everything into your court. They will sit down among themselves, and say this is how best we can achieve it. They will now advise the government. This is what we want you to do. This is what we want you to do. But you find that government will come with vision. Is it vision 2010, 2020, 2030? But the people who are going to drive all these visions are left behind. And they are the ones that you even punish instead of you to bring them closer to you. Just like you have said, you will agree with them. This year we are going to have a free import duty on certain products, and they all go because they want to support the government. Halfway you now say, oh, we don't have enough resources, we are going to cancel it. As a businessman, you have disrupted everything for that year for them, because they also solicit funds from home and abroad. And by the time they have planned that this is where government wants us to go, and they are going there, and maybe another government come, or the same government try to truncate the whole setup, then you have wasted a lot of resources for those who are supposed to actualize the dream. So it's important for government. It is only in this country, for crying loud, that I know that we don't bring the people who will actualize our dream to play. Recently, we have the National Development Bank for SMEs. Who are the people on the board? They are not those who are practicing entrepreneurship.
And that is putting a round peg in a wrong,
yes, but,
in a square hole.
At the time we had the senators, or our legislators are proposing it, everybody was happy that at least the SMEs can have a source of funding, But by the time you now go through their act, you find that it's even limited. What they want to go into, is limited. They have areas they want to go into. And apart from that, the people who know where the shoes pinch most, you did not put them on board. And now government will be paying this commission. Whereas if you have brought the SMEs, if you have brought the industrialists to be there, you don't need to pay them any kobo, because it is their interest. They will be protecting that interest. But by the time this National Development Bank now, by the time they start bringing in their costs of administration, even that will wipe away a lot of resources that the SMEs are supposed to use. So it's important. You see, that's one aspect of government. Another aspect that I'm looking into is that Nigerians, most Nigerians, when it comes to economic development, we are not patriotic. And
when you say we're not patriotic, what perspective are you looking at?
The issue is, if the government says this is the way we want to go, once it does not benefit you as an investor or something like that, instead of you to sit the government down, if you go this way, this is the effect. But people will always want to say it to a listening government.
And that's another thing.
That's another thing. Government is not supposed to be bringing out or rolling out plans without the commitment of those who will help the government
execute and implement it.
The plans. What I see is that Nigerians, they say we don't revolt. We do. But we do it quietly. If the government is going right, Nigerians will be going left. They say when the government knows that things are not working, they will revert back to us. We shouldn't do that. We should sit down our government. You can't do this.
But you just said something here, Madam, that is if you have a listening government.
Yeah,
if we have a listening government,
it's all because of the kind of constitution we have. The constitution
has. We are still coming to that.
Yeah,
we are still going to look extensively at constitutional provisions.
Has given the power to the government. But when I was going through the constitution, I observed that our representatives are not doing anything for us at all. The area I also want to come in, because we talk about the 1972 indigenization policy.
Yes.
As beautiful as that policy was, our people sabotaged the efforts of government. They were being used as fronts for foreigners. They went to CAC, they changed the MMO Act, the memorandum and articles. They say they are the one owing those shares, whereas the shares belong to the foreigners. So we were not supporting our government at that time.
That was a failure there. We got it wrong at that point.
The failure actually was that of Nigerians. And that is why we are saying that we must know that we are the government. We are the government.
So had it been that we had done it right at that time, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today.
Be where we are today. When we say Ghana must go, Ghana must go, Ghana went. Are they not better than us now? Because they were able to sit down. They came to reason with themselves, and they are working. And a lot of factories here, a lot of industrialists have actually moved to Ghana. So that is one aspect. Government has really tried a lot when it comes to economic development. It's not that they don't have plans. They have plans, but they are not bringing in those who are supposed to actualize.
That is those who really knows who can drive it the way they should.
And that is why we
experts now or specialists in economic.
The industrialists, those who know, those who we have local investors, and they are willing to develop this country.
Are you
worried and concerned about your educational development and interested in building a sound academic education and professional career in accountancy, ACES Institute of Accountancy and Management here offers you an opportunity for a new beginning. At ACES Institute of Accountancy and Management, accounting professional students and secondary school leavers can take advantage of our numerous programs to qualify as professional accountants and specialists in different fields of learning. With our conducive learning environment, competent and experienced professional lecturers to see students through their examinations successfully. Classes for secondary school leavers starts in January 2019, while registration is ongoing for foundation and accountancy programs and other professional examination courses. For inquiries and registration, you can visit our corporate office at Niger House, UAC Building, 11th floor, 325 Odunlami Street, off Marina, Lagos, or email at icanedu@aces.org. or our website at www.acersim.org or call 0703 086 8455 0817 079 0833. Welcome back and thanks again for joining us on the Youth Wing segment of the Constitution, where we give the youth a voice of reasoning, a voice to express their own expression as it concerns democratic governance and corporate governance in the socio-economic development and growth of the Nigerian state. Today, in furtherance with our discussions that we had earlier, they're also going to take a look at employment generation and entrepreneurship development as it relates to our access to our natural resources. This is what they'll be talking about with me on this program for today, in collaborating with what we had discussed earlier before this time. And while we do that, let me quickly introduce them, as they are just known faces, save for one who is just a guest on the show today. It is a great honor to introduce the extreme right of mine. I have Obin Madwabuchi. He's an associate chartered accountant, and he's a chairman of the youth wing of the International Center for Tax Research and Development, and he has that interest and specialization in taxation and financial advisory. It's a great honor to have you join me again, as always, on the Constitution.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And let me also respectfully welcome Dosumu Agbola Mubarak. He's a final year law student from the University of Lagos, and he has interest in socio-economic rights and development, as well as human rights and fundamental freedoms. It's also a pleasure to also have you join us for the first time, if I'm not mistaken, on the program today. You're most welcome. And Ipioluwa Adeademilua is equally a final year law student from the University of Lagos, and he has that specialized interest in that which we've called corporate governance and sustainable development. Is a regular face. It's also good to have you again. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, gentlemen, we're looking together at employment generation and entrepreneurship development as it relates to our access, to our natural resources. And let me start from the chairman of the youth wing, Mr. Obin Madwabuchi. How do we understand this so that we can really get it clear and straight as to the fact that we can make these things happen?
Yeah, thank you for the question. In our space, we noticed that unemployment has been a major issue in our economy. Looking at the figures churned out by the National Bureau of Statistics, comparing the third quarter and the fourth quarter, unemployment has increased, though marginally. So we also noticed that we have the natural resources. We have crude oil, we have coal. Despite all this,
we have so many natural resources.
We have so many
natural resources.
So despite all these resources, we are still faced with unemployment.
Challenges of unemployment.
Which is a paradox, which should not be. So the challenge, what we are looking at is, why should we have this?
In the midst of plenty.
Yes, in the midst of plenty. What are the opportunities? We have problems. Are we not turning these problems? Why are we not turning these problems to opportunities? What can we do? Should the sector be government driven, or should it be private sector driven? So what are the hiccups? Is it finance? Is it legal issue? What are the bottlenecks? So
is it policies of government that is not creating room for these things to be possible?
Exactly. So these are what we are interested in examining, so that we come up with recommendation ideas that could solve this problem
So from your own understanding, what do you think are the challenge? Why must we have employment problem? Because we know that this country is blessed with abundant natural resources. We have all it takes, what it takes to make every single Nigerian youth employable in this country today, either in the government, public sector, or the private sector. If you ask me very sincerely, when we look at what turns out in terms of remunerations for the legislatures and how the monies are there for them to spend, and we cannot find room. I'm just concerned. What do you think? I mean, why do you think? You've just raised the idea, so why is it so?
So for me, there are two problems which I would say. One is policy and structural issue, and one is the individual as youths. Now, in terms of the individual, let me look at the mind. We discussed one or two things when we're having interaction, that we have this mindset issue, mindset problem as an individual. People believe that when I go to school, I graduate from school, I should get a white-collar job. They don't look at school as an eye-opener, as a forum for them to be entrepreneurs, so that they could spot opportunity and solve problem and create jobs. But they're looking at school the other way around. I go to school, I have my BSc, I have my HND, I have my master's, so I get it. I'm looking for a job.
A ready-made job is waiting for
me. A ready-made job is waiting. So that mindset needs to be addressed. On the other hand, we have structural issue, monetary policy issue, and the fiscal policy issue. The monetary policy issue is those that really want to go into entrepreneurship or the finances, to start up the business. What's the interest rates? The interest rates averagely is about more than 20%. So get from conventional banks. And the microfinance banks that are supposed to support small scale and medium scale enterprise is even higher than the normal commercial banks. So the Bank of Industry is there. The Development Bank of Nigeria is also there. But how many youth have access to this bank? It's not enough. Even I read lately that these banks, BOI, need to be recapitalized, meaning that they need more funds to do well. So these are the monetary issue. Now, we also have fiscal issue in terms of taxation. Those that are there, the fiscal issue in terms of tax, in our tax laws, do people understand it? Has it been synchronized in such a way that there is the issue of multiple taxation?
That's right.
Is addressed. So these are some of the issues that are actually affecting youth and mindset issue, monetary policy issue, and fiscal policy issue.
Well, Dosumwabola Mubarak, what would be your take in all of these equations and issues raised with this concern?
Personally, I think the real problem we have in this country is this sense of entitlement. I've noticed that practically everybody I know in school has this idea that, like you said, study your course, study it well, and when you're done, you're going to get a job in a really good, high-paying job. So the entire idea is become a worker. No one thinks about creating
even a skill.
You understand? Because the point is now, unemployment has risen between the second and the third quarter. Now we have 23.1% unemployment rate. 36% of these people are youth. On the other hand, on the flip side, when we finish from our tertiary institutions, we go and serve for a year doing literally...
It's a compulsory youth service.
Compulsory youth service. So instead of going for a compulsory youth service or something that would literally waste our time while preparing us to become workers, why don't we use that 1 year period to, acquire something that would actually create job, not just for ourselves, but for our immediate community.
When you say create job, is it to acquire skill acquisition training in whatever potentials or areas one has so discovered oneself or one's talent in any specialized field of learning, or what are you trying to say?
Yes, very well. It could involve you learning a particular skill, like a vocational skill, quote unquote. However, the real important thing is for you to actually kickstart your own entrepreneurial objectives. I mean, it is very easy to be a worker, but it is not easy to actually have the vision and the capability to actually lead a business and build it. So I think the point I'm trying to make here is that we should build people to want to think for themselves, create employment for themselves, and create employment for others. Because in this way, first and foremost, they will not be in the labor market seeking for employment. And secondly, they'll be providing employment for people in the labor market instead of just being a part of the bandwagon seeking employment. So personally, I feel if we have more access to our resources, we can revitalize ourselves to look for a way to make commercial use of the resources we have to ensure that, we are not only employed, we also get other people to be employed.
But you would have discovered the area of concern where you want to really create that employment drive in.
Yes.
Is that what you're also saying here?
Okay, so what I am saying here is this. Wherever field you study, whatever course you study, there are certain problems relating to people in that particular field of study.
That's right.
Now, what an entrepreneur does is this: he sees problems and makes opportunities.
Spots the opportunities
in the problems. You understand?
That's right.
So my point is, when every single person that has studied a particular course is encouraged to be an entrepreneur in that particular course, solve a problem in that particular course. Imagine if everybody that finishes from a tertiary institution all think of problems in their particular course and solve a problem in that particular course.
That will create opportunities
for everybody and solve a lot of problems within that particular field of study. So it would help not just the economy, not just the country, but even the course they studied in the first place.
Okay. Ipinolua Adeademilua, you are also here. What will be your own take?
I'd like to move away from the individual focus on the challenges that are caused as a result of the state and the environment we're in. Because, firstly, the laws that we have, the Land Use Act, the Mineral Act, already vest these natural resources that we're speaking of in the federal government.
That's right.
Now, no government has come forward, or even using the current government as an example, with a mindset of actually thinking of how to harness these resources. So no government has looked to the fact that all of the 36 states have at least one resource, and realizing that, okay, these resources can actually be harnessed, we can create jobs for people, we can meet the social needs of people, we can generate revenue internally. No government has thought of that. But it still remains, according to the laws, the duty of the government to do this. Now, if we're saying individuals should come into the picture, we have to look at what is the environment like. Because business is a matter of profit and risk.
That's right.
So you're asking, it is easier for us to say people should come out of school, start jobs like trade, start jobs like acquire
vocational
skills,
training, skills.
But when it comes to natural resources, the amount of capital it takes is more intense. Then we talk about the fact that he earlier mentioned, the fact that the fiscal policy is not quite environmental friendly in terms of you've gone through so much risk in the inception of your company. Now the government is going to come and take a large share due to royalties and taxation, and to the fact that the risk that comes with exploring these resources and finding that they are not in commercial quantities.
Yes, and will not give the profits expected from such venture.
Which is one of the reasons why most banks will not even be so
willing to give loan.
Because at the end of the day, it is a business. So the government has to identify that it is their duty to harness these resources. Now, it is very fine and very laudable that the Mineral Act allows private individuals to approach the ministry for leases and licenses and permits. But apart from granting people the opportunity to do so, it has to create an environment that encourages people to approach them for permits and to look to harness these resources. So there's still a large duty on the state to make sure that individuals are not just willing to harness these resources, but are able to do so.
Gentlemen, in all of this we're talking about, the challenge is what we are facing, we need to contend with, whether we like it or not today, it's just there, given the statistics that you gave. But then we must move on. So what do we do now? Minus the areas, courses or how this has been, what can we do to provide a lasting solution today?
Yeah, one solution we could prefer is to set up, to replace the NYSS scheme, the National Youth Service Corps scheme. Is that to replace or modify it? So a National Employment Youth Scheme. Because when you finish...
The NYSC now should be National Employment Youth Scheme.
Yes, National Youth Employment
Scheme. Youth Employment Scheme.
Yes.
As a way out.
That's a way out. Because that is... It's either we modify the existing the existing scheme, or we replace it with the...
If we want to modify, what do we modify?
So meaning that instead of going, you use 2 or 3 weeks at the orientation camp, then you get posted to your area primary assignment. You use the entire, that should be changed. We use the entire 12 months or 1 year
for skill acquisition.
For skill acquisition, because
So
skill
that by the
acquisition
time-
is a long term. It's a project. People go to Lagos Business School or a lot of business school over the world to spend like 18 months, more than a year, just to acquire business skill. So if you use 1 year after your 4 years or 5 years in university or polytechnic, and use
On
1 year
compulsory service to acquire skills.
so you'll be able to solve problem. So that's one area I think we could explore, the government could say, because by doing that, it has a lot of multiplier effects. So you empower one youth, and that will create a lot of jobs. So granted, we have some program by the government, You Win, Empower program, but that should be integrated immediately when they finish school, where they are still thinking very fresh, and they can do a lot of things. Energy is there, and people can, come and just flow into this national youth employment scheme. So that's one area I will prefer. I would want to recommend for the government to do, and you could think of.
Agbola Dosimo, what's your own solution?
Okay, so personally, I talked about how we should change our mindset about seeking employment, and rather we should replace it with creating employment opportunities.
That's right.
And Ipino mentioned the fact that every state in Nigeria has at least one natural resource. So it stands to reason that there are people studying something related to this very particular natural resource. So take, for instance, there are people studying petroleum and chemical engineering and things like this. So if everybody studying these, individual courses are given, special training to emphasize the need of
the institute in Warri, this one created by the federal government.
Yeah, precisely. So these guys are going to be able to advise these individual states government on how to harness natural resources in their state that is currently not receiving the much needed attention. For instance, now the
build it up to capacity to give the opportunities.
Exactly. So we would have local content development in our own nation itself without relying on international oil companies or other international companies to do them for us. I mean, it pays everybody in the end.
Ipinoluwa, your submission will be what?
Yes, drawing from what they said in relation to training the youth, I think we have to now, once you've trained these youth, you have to create a sector where their training would be useful. Like he said, we have people studying things like, even apart from petroleum engineering, people studying like food technology and all these things and things like that. Even things as little as, even something as little as arable land is considered a resource in some parts. So even states that claim, oh, we don't have oil, we don't have gold, you have land that is good for agriculture, which is a global sector. So the government can create an environment which these trained youths now can play a role in. One of the ways the government can do so is making sure that you provide incentives to promote the industry. So you are granting tax cuts, and you're encouraging people to go, and you're encouraging public-private partnerships, maybe where the government in its public domain can be taking care of the capitalization aspect and injecting capital into these businesses, while people are coming into, while the private sector rather is coming into the operation of this. So that way they will need hands to carry out these operations, which is where the youths will come in.
And that's where the youths will come in.
Furthermore, you can look at it the way the current oil sector is, where you have upstream and downstream, and these big multinationals are the ones participating in the upstream sector of extracting oil, while the local companies are the ones dealing with transporting the oil and fueling and all this. So you find that even as to the issue of, the youths coming out of school don't have the financial capacity to go into this large-scale exploitation of these resources, the outcomes of the sectors that would come out of these public-private partnerships and these operations will create smaller markets where youths can
take advantage of. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your contribution. I say a big thank you to Obina Madwa, which is so good to have you on the program again today. Dosumu Agbola Mubarak, my very good friend, thank you so very much. We look forward to having you back again to look at all the issues with us. And of course, Ipinoluwa Dea Demilua, we say big thank you again and again, and together we'll still do more on the Constitution. Well, that's just it for today on the Youth Wing segment, where we'll talk about employment generation and entrepreneurship development. as it relates to access to our natural resources, that is giving room to youth into keen into buying all of these ideas that will make them employable in the nearest future as soon as they are graduating from schools, looking at all of these solutions they've so raised as a way out for government and even private sector to look into for the betterment of the good youth of this great country. We'll take another break. We'll be right back after this time out.
Good afternoon, viewers. My name is Manabuchi Obina Emmanuel. I'm your anchor for this program. Welcome to this edition of International Center for Tax Research and Development tax segments. In our last episode, we discussed about withholding tax, and we talked about what withholding tax is. Withholding tax is not a separate form of tax, rather is an advanced payment of tax. But in this episode, we'll be looking at the due dates for filing withholding tax and what withholding tax credit notes is all about. So withholding tax filing, when it comes to payment of withholding tax, could be paid to either the Federal Inland Revenue Service or the state's internal revenue services. So the due date for filing of withholding tax is usually the last day, the 30th of the following month. If the withholding tax is for limited liability company, but however, for unincorporated entity or for individual, the withholding tax will be filed in the tax authority where the person is resident. So the due date for filing withholding tax is usually the 30th day of the next month and the 21st day of the next month when it relates to the state's internal revenue services. So it's very good that we understand this particular aspect. And there's what we call a withholding tax credit note. A withholding tax credit note usually is what you get after the payment of withholding tax. So when withholding tax is deducted from your account, then you should request for a withholding tax credit note. And don't forget, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the Joint Tax Board, has integrated the withholding tax system in such a way that when the withholding tax is deducted from your account, your tax file online is credited. So it's being automated. Unlike before, we have a credit note being issued to you. When you get the credit note, you tender your credit note. So what we are saying, what the tax authority is doing right now is, when withholding tax is deducted, there's a mechanism of getting tax credits into your tax account. That means that at the end of the accounting year, when you want to file your annual tax return, it therefore means that you already have some credits in your account as a taxpayer. I think it's a very good thing. And it's very important you also know about that there is penalty for non-deduction of withholding tax. So the penalty is usually 10% of the amount not deducted, and which includes you paying interest based on the prevailing market rate or the prevailing central bank rates of interest. So it's very good you do not expose your company or your organization from the withholding tax liability. So it's key. So on this note, I would like to thank you once again for listening to the last section, the second section of the withholding tax section. And in our next session, we'll be looking at another transactional related tax, which is called value-added tax. And thank you for listening. And you could check on your screen for our websites, our phone numbers, and our email address should you need any other tax advisory services. Or visit us at the 11th floor, Niger House, 53/5 Odulami Street off Marina, Lagos, for more information about tax. Thank you for listening.
And so it is on this good note, we want to call it a there again today on the Constitution. Hoping that again you will join us same time next week. But don't forget, our social media platforms are just on the screen for you to see. You can connect with us on the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course on WhatsApp messages platform. We all have them on our social media platform as you see them on the screen for you to connect with us so that let's hear your views, and together we'll make the difference in making Nigeria a better place for all. Thank you for joining us.
No love is all we need.